नामालयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पाद शंकरं लोकशंकरं। त्वमेव माता च पिता त्वमेव बन्धुश्च सखा त्वमेव विद्या द्रविणं त्वमेव सर्वं मम देव। श्रीदक्षिणामूर्ति सुदेशिकेन्द्रं द्वैपायनं सूत्रकृतं मुनीन्द्रं श्रीशंकरं भाष्यकृतं यतीन्द्रं मद्देशिकञ्चापि नमामि विद्यै। ओम नमो ब्रह्मादिभ्यो ब्रह्मविद्या संप्रदायकर्तृभ्यो वंशऋषिभ्यो महद्भ्यो नमो गुरुभ्यः। सर्वोपप्लवरहित प्रज्ञानगणः प्रत्यगर्तो ब्रह्मैवाहमस्मि। Pranams everyone. We are doing this introduction to Vedanta series now. In this we had seen human goals, and human goals are classified into 4: Artha, Kama, Dharma, Moksha, and everybody's final goal is only moksha. And to attain this moksha, there are intermediary steps and intermediary goals that the Shastras prescribe for us to achieve the final goal. And in this regard, we had seen Karma Yoga in the last class. The last 2 classes we have been seeing Karma Yoga. Karma means action. Karma Yoga is converting this action into a sadhana. A sadhana that will give us an intermediary goal called Chitta Shuddhi. Chitta Shuddhi is purity of mind. Purity of mind is an essential and a compulsory qualification for us to be able to attain moksha. Purity of mind, Chitta Shuddhi itself is not moksha, but it is a compulsory and a necessary step for us to attain the jnana through which we can get moksha. So, Karma Yoga, converting that karma into yoga is Karma Yoga. And what is the change in the attitude? We saw it in the last class. The change in the attitude is I have to do all my duties, swadharma, without any likes or dislikes, without any raga dvesha. Whatever is the duty that is prescribed for me, depending on the role, time and place that I am in, I should perform the duty without any likes and dislikes. That is swadharma. And doing it without likes and dislikes is the first attitude. The second attitude that a person needs to have is have no return expectations. Even when I am doing a duty towards someone, I do not expect the other person to be thankful or to do something in back or even express gratitude. That is the second attitude shift that I should have in terms of converting this karma into Karma Yoga. The third attitude is Ishvara Arpanam. Whatever I do, I offer it as if I am offering it to Ishvara himself. So I do not consider the other person, I am doing a favor to the other person. Rather, I would take it as if I am doing my duty towards Ishvara. So these are the 3 shifts in attitude that we have to make to be able to convert karma into Karma Yoga. And what is the benefit of that? The first benefit is there are no failures in Karma Yoga. In terms of an action, when I do some action, I expect a result. The result may or may not come. I take medicine for me to get well. The medicine may work on me or may not work on me. I may appear for an interview, I may get the job, I may not get the job. I look to get that particular object or I look to possess some object or get some person in my life, I may or may not get. So there could be failures in karma, but whereas in karma yoga, the phalam that I am expecting out of karma yoga is chitta shuddhi, and if I am actually making a shift in my attitude, this phalam is bound to get. I am bound to get this phalam. This assurance is given by Bhagavan in Gita. Bhagavad Gita, he gives this assurance that you will not fail when you do karma yoga. The second difference is no pratyavaya dosham. In karma, if a specific actions would have to be prescribed, would have to be done in a specific manner. If I don't do it in a specified manner, then there is a papam, a sin that is incurred. Whereas in the case of karma yoga, because I have a shift in my attitude, there is no question of omissions or commissions in the case of karma yoga. The third difference is there are no half-baked actions. In the case of karma, I have to ensure that I get the full result. Either I get the result or I don't get the result. It's binary. Either there is a success or a failure. Whereas in the case of karma yoga, to the extent of the effort, I would be able to get the phalam, the benefit, the fruits of my action. So these three are how karma is differentiated from karma yoga. And we saw that karma yoga, one of the important things of karma yoga is Panchamaha Yajna. Panchamaha Yajna are mandatory yajnas to be done by a grihastha ashrama person, which are Deva Yajna, Pitru Yajna, Brahma Yajna, Manushya Yajna and Bhuta Yajna. On a daily basis, a person should do this Panchamaha Yajnas. Then we have seen this, which are these Panchamaha Yajnas, which are these mandatory yajnas that have been given by Shastras. And then we have also seen the duties that we will have to perform as a father, son, mother, daughter, neighbor, friend, employee, boss, mother-in-law, father-in-law, son-in-law, daughter-in-law, whatever be the role that we take, whatever the role that we do, we have some duties. We do those duties. So even those we have now discussed. As I said, in our culture, it's only duties that we speak about. Whereas in the Western society, it's more on rights that they speak about. Our culture focuses on duties. We say work is worship. Even in those days, when I say, in the earlier days when we used to give leave letter, when I used to write leave letter in my school English classes, we would say, as I am suffering from fever, I would not be able to come for duty. Or we will join duty. I will rejoin duty on this and this date. So every work is considered as a duty. But we also know that apart from these duties, generally for a human person or for a human being, we have this what is known as desires. And those desires tend to make us act. So these are not duties, but these are actions that will give me, that I do out of my desire. For example, I'm watching a movie, I'm listening to a song, I'm going for a holiday, I invest in shares, I buy a house. All these are not duties per se. These are all not duties at all. But I still indulge in them because of the desire that I have. Now the question is, what should be the bhavana, what should be the attitude that a person should have on these activities? Ultimately, slowly this person should transcend all these desires, but it is not going to be easy, and it is not necessary to transcend it overnight. So until the time that desire is in my mind, what is the bhavana, what is the attitude that I should have in terms of these activities? These desires that force me into action, these actions are called as kamya karma. Kamya karma means actions loaded with desire. So kamya karma for a person with spiritual path is, to start with, if a person is in the spiritual path, to start with it is okay. But even when we are doing this kamya karma, Shastras teach us how we can convert this kamya karma into karma yoga. So kamya karma is not like swadharma. In the sense, in swadharma we told the person, while doing your duty, do not have any expectations. We said that. Whereas a kamya karma is done because of the expectation that we have in our mind. I go to a movie because I want to enjoy that movie. I want to go to a restaurant because I want to enjoy the food. I go for a holiday because I want to enjoy the scenery. There is an expectation even before I start the action. So I cannot say do not have expectations to that person who is doing kamya karma. So it is not wrong to do action. It is not wrong to have kamya desires, not wrong to do kamya karmas, and it is also not wrong to have results or expect results when you do kamya karma. But the attitude shift that we have to make is, whatever be the phalam, whatever be the outcome, we are able to take it as it is. As what? As Ishvara Prasada. We are able to take it as a blessing of Ishvara. This change in attitude is called as Prasada Buddhi. We should take the result as if it is given by Ishvara himself. When doing Swadharma, we should not have any written expectations, but when doing Kamya Karma, we take the phalam, the outcome, as Ishvara Prasada. What is Ishvara Prasada? What is the change in attitude? How do I explain Ishvara Prasada? When we go to a temple and take Prasada, we just take it with humility. We use both our hands to gather that. And even if it is a little, we take in our hands. We don't say it is only this much little. And then we take it to our eyes. And then we just take it into our mouth. If it is a tirtha or some prasada, we just take it into our mouth. We do not find fault in it. We do not say it is too salty, it is too cold. Nothing of that sort. We don't give any complaints. So that is the attitude that we should have on these outcomes as well. I don't find fault in the outcome. I don't feel uncontented. I don't feel disappointed with the outcome. I don't feel cheated. I don't feel unhappy. Or I don't feel any jealousy that this person has got more than me. Or I don't feel proud because I got more than you. So that attitude shift is called as Prasada Buddhi. On the other hand, I feel humble, I feel contented, I am happy, I am grateful for what I get. If I am able to make shift this attitude within myself, whenever I am doing Kamya Karma, even these Kamya Karmas can be converted into Karma Yoga. And Karma Yoga in turn will give me Chitta Shuddhi. And over a period of time, if we notice, a spiritual seeker's Kamya Karma will keep reducing. Initially, for a person who has just started out on spiritual path, the kamya karmas would be more. As a person progresses spiritually, the kamya karmas will start reducing. And for an enlightened karma yogi, for a person who has reached the pinnacle of karma yoga, every action is Ishwararpana, born out of awareness. There are no kamya karmas at all for him, because every action he wants to offer it to Ishvara. So when I do karma, the result is karma phala. When I do karma yoga, the phala is Ishvara prasada. And Ishvara prasada is sacred. I do not reject, I do not throw away the prasada given to me in the temple. I just take it. I don't reject it, I don't criticize it, and I take it with a sense of fulfillment. I feel grateful, I feel happy that I have got the opportunity to have that prasada. So that is the attitude that we should have for all the outcomes of kamya karma. And that is called as yoga. And when I have these two bhavanas, which is Ishvara Arpana Buddhi and Prasada Buddhi, Ishvara Arpana Bhavana and Prasada Bhavana, then I enjoy an equanimous mind. My mind does not get agitated. When I have to do it for myself or somebody else, I feel either good in doing it, or I feel very unhappy because I have to do it for this person. Whereas if I am doing it for the sake of Ishvara, my mind is happy, my mind is calm, my mind is contented. Similarly, when the result is not as per what I expect, there could be agitation, or when the result is exceeding my expectations, I feel extremely joyful. So my mind can actually waver, can go to the extremes. Whereas if I take it as Ishvara Prasada and I say I am happy, grateful with whatever I get, then I get Samattuvam in mind. And Krishna calls this as Samattuvam Yoga Muchyate. In Bhagavad Gita, he says this Samattuva Bhava is very important. I am enthusiastic in every action. Remember, I am not feeling, there is no dullness, there is no drudgery, there is no boredom in what I do. Whatever I do it with full enthusiasm. Because every action that I do is for Ishvara. It is an offering to Ishvara, to the Ishvara that I love. So when I do it with full enthusiasm, and whatever I get, I take it as his prasada. This leads to a mental calmness. This leads to a samattuvam. My mind does not get agitated. In Tamil they say, Tunbattil tullamalum, inbattil tuvalamalum. The mind does not get too high or too low. There is no depression, there is no excitement, overtly excitement. So this Samatva Bhavana will lead to a very fast spiritual growth. This is called as Chitta Shuddhi, the fast spiritual growth where the mind gets calm is Chitta Shuddhi. So if we continue to do this Karma Yoga, we will notice that even without any special effort from our side, we will be inculcating some of the Daivi Sampat. Daivi Sampat meaning good values. It will come automatically into us. We will feel less jealous. We will feel less pride. We will have more humility. Less ego. And some of the Asura Gunas will leave us. Anger will reduce. Hatred will reduce. Vengeance will reduce. Irritation will reduce. Depression will reduce. So when we convert our karma into karma yoga, naturally, without even any special effort, we will be inculcating good values in ourselves. So karma yoga, if I have to summarize, it's mainly about doing our duty properly, without any likes or dislikes, with full awareness, with full involvement, without expecting any sense of gratitude or even any return favor. And as I said, once a karma yogi becomes fully matured, he will not have even any kamya karma to perform at all. Kamya karma being actions that come out of desires. Now, we have seen two types of actions which are duties and actions which are coming out of desires. Then there is third set of actions which is known as prayashchitta karmas. Prayashchitta karmas are karmas that we know, we go to an astrologer. The astrologer says that there are some issues in your horoscope, and therefore he prescribes certain actions, and those actions are called as prayashchitta karmas. Or if I do some papa, I try to nullify that papa. What is this prayashchitta karma? What is the effect in the horoscope? Basically, the horoscope is nothing but a reflection of what your prarabdha karma, the karma that has been that the phala that you will have to go through in this life. So everyone's life will have certain good moments, certain bad moments, certain joys, certain sorrows. Everybody will have to go through that. There will be some happy moments, there will be some sorrowful moments. There will be some pain, there will be some gain. So the question is, now what we say is, whatever is the sorrowful, painful moments, I want to avoid them. And therefore I go to the astrologer and say, okay, what is it that I need to do? Actually, what is it that we are getting? We are getting those painful moments are the results of our actions of our previous births. And those are coming to us right now, and we have to go through them. Now what we want to do is to avoid them. To avoid them, the astrologer suggests some prayashchitta karmas. The problem is, this prayashchitta karmas may or may not work. It depends on the intensity of the karma phala. And the more and more I try to go to do these prayashchitta karmas, I am trying to run away from taking ownership or facing the karma phala. These karma phalas that I go through, the sorrowful, painful moments that I go through, are actually moments where I can actually improve myself spiritually. These are the moments that have been given by Ishvara for us to turn inward, for us to look at life in a more critical manner, for us to understand the true nature of our lives and try to improve our spiritual nature. And then, but we do not want to, we want to try to look for only joy. But then if we do prayashchitta karmas, as I said, it may or may not work. Whereas these moments where I have to go through pain or suffering are like, just like a fire can only purify gold, only sorrow can purify our personality. Everybody would have seen a sorrowful moment for them to actually turn inward or go for some spiritual path. If you see, even Siddhartha, when as long as he was in the palace, he was happy and okay. The moment he saw something sorrowful, like a death, he started questioning and he went inward. It made him turn spiritual. So we should not try to run away from sorrows. We should ask Bhagavan for giving us the strength to face the issue. That should be our attitude towards prayaschitta karmas. Prayaschitta karmas should be tried to avoid as much as possible. Of course, if it is not something that we can bear, then we can do prayaschitta karmas. But it is, for a spiritual seeker, it is generally said, try to avoid doing prayaschitta karmas. There is a saying in Tamil, Tunba pudattil ittu thooyavanai yakkinai. When in Mahabharata, when after the war, when Krishna was about to take leave from Pandavas, he bid goodbye to Kunti, and Kunti said, when Krishna asked Kunti, what does she want? Kunti said, give me a lot of sorrows. She said, because she said, only in sorrows I remember you. So I have to remember you often. So give me more sorrows. So only in sorrowful times we will remember Ishvara. Because when we are doing well, we will take it as if we did it. We want to take credit for wherever we did well. We do not want to attribute that to Ishvara. But when something goes wrong, we want to blame others. And if nobody else could be blamed, we try to blame fate or we try to blame Ishvara. But at that time, probably we remember Ishvara. That's why sorrowful nature, whenever we encounter sorrow, pain, we should be looking inward. We should be trying to improve our spiritual nature. So this is for prayaschitta karmas. Then there is, of course, the last set of karmas, which is called as nishiddha karmas. Nishiddha karmas are those that are not to be done. Tamasa karmas, we already said. These are karmas that should not be done at all. If we do, we spiritually fall. So the fruit of karma yoga, this chitta shuddhi, and the more and more I get chitta shuddhi, the more and more my mind becomes pure. I will get clarity on my life. I will get clarity on this whole universe. I get more and more clarity about the world around me. And I will soon start realizing the truth that all the problems in my life are not caused by the world, but they are caused by my wrong handling of the world and because of my ignorance. The problems that I face are not caused by the world, but the problems are caused by my ignorance. And therefore this chitta shuddhi is important. And chitta shuddhi, can I get chitta shuddhi? Is there any other way other than karma yoga where I can get chitta shuddhi? The answer is no. Only karma yoga will give chitta shuddhi. So that is karma yoga. Karma yoga, just to recap, is something that a grihastha ashrama person will have to do predominantly in their life. So that is karma yoga. So now we finished karma yoga. Karma yoga is chitta shuddhi. Now we'll go to the second yoga, which is called as upasana yoga. Upasana yoga, Adi Shankara also calls this as samadhi yoga. Upasana yoga, the purpose of this upasana yoga it is a program to make our personality fit for accomplishing this purushartha. So this is to make our personality purushartha varti. As I said, the entire life's journey is only to attain the purusharthas, the moksha purushartha. So to get there, we have to make our personality, we'll have to make a change in our personality to be able to get this purushartha. So this Upasana Yoga can be called as personality conditioning program. You can call it as personality conditioning program. Upasana means, generally what it means is Ishvara Dhyana at mental level. At a mental level, if I am able to meditate upon Ishvara, that is called as Upasana in general. And this personality that I have to change, in Kathopanishad, our personality is actually compared to a vehicle or a chariot in those days. Just like a vehicle has to be fit in condition for traveling, successfully reaching the goal. If I am having a car, then the car should be in a good condition so that I can reach the destination that I want. Suppose if I turn left and the car turns right, then I will have anxiety problems, I will have issues, I will not be able to reach the goal, the destination where I want to. And similarly, our personality should be also in such a form that I should be able to do what I say. And what is our personality? What is it that we call our personality? In our scriptures, our personality is divided into different layers for the facility of handling. This personality can be divided into different layers. This is because we are a complex personality. We cannot be handled it in one go. It is not easy for us to even handle ourselves in one go. So they are subdivided into layers for the facility of handling. And even these layers that we separate this personality, we divide this personality, there are multiple ways to divide this personality. One is, of course, the Panchakosha Viveka. Panchakosha, where we divide the personality into 5 layers or 5 sheets. 5 sheets of personality. That is called as Panchakosham. We'll discuss about that later. And then there is something called the Sharira Trayam. We have 3 layers of body. We divide this body into 3 layers. So different methods are being used. And for this Upasana Yoga, we will divide our personality into 3 layers, not the Sharira Trayam, but another popular way in which our Shastras divide our personality generally. And it is very popular in Shastra and it is an important classification. The 3 layers are Kayikam, Vachikam and Manasam. Kayikam, Vachikam and Manasam. The first layer of personality is Kayikam. Kayikam means this is from the standpoint of physical body. That is called as Kayikam. The second aspect of our personality is Vachikam. Vachikam means the developed organ of speech. The speech not only displays our personality, but what we speak also influences our personality. So that is the second one, Vachikam. The last one is Manasam. Manasa Amsa is basically the psychological personality, which is probably the subtlest and the most important part of our personality. It is extremely difficult to handle this Amsa or this portion, but it should not be ignored. That is the Manasa Amsa. So Kayikam, Vachikam, Manasam. And our scriptures take into account all these 3 layers of personality, and they prescribe some programs for conditioning these layers. So each layer is given certain do's and don'ts so that you are able to condition it. The first one is the physical body. The physical body, is a very important instrument. This body is an important instrument. Only through this body I am able to accomplish things in life, including moksha. So this body is very important. Whether it is material pursuit or spiritual pursuit, I need this body. So the scriptures never say ignore or neglect your body. When I say body, it means the health of the body. The physical health of the body should not be neglected. And throughout the scriptures, we have prayers for our physical body. Even when we do Sankalpa, when doing anything, we'll say Arogya Dridagatra Samtyartyam. We'll say Arogyam. All these things, when we ask, we'll say, also ask for Ayur Arogyam. We need long life and healthy life. And before consuming medicines also, we'll say Sharire Jarjare Bhute Vyadi Kraste Kalaivare Aushadam Jhanavi Toyam Vaidya Narayano Harihi. Because when the body, the physical body is suffering and the body is beset with disease, the medicine, whatever we take, should be like the sacred water of Ganga. And the doctor who attends to me is equivalent to Sriman Narayana. So this physical body has never been ignored, or is never been said that you would have to neglect physical body. If you come to, some people have this opinion that when you come to spirituality, you will have to neglect the physical body. It doesn't say that. In fact, even in all the Vedantic portions of Vedas, in the Upanishads, we have this Shanti Pata mantras. We have this Badram Karne Vishnuyama Devaha Badram Pashye Makshaviryajatraha Sthirairangai Stushtabagum Sastanubihi, where we are all asking for the physical body to be maintained well. We ask for Pushti, Arogya. I ask for good ears, I ask for good eyesight. So health maintenance should not be looked down upon as pampering. Pampering of the body is different. Health maintenance of the body is different. Pampering arises when I consider that the physical body to be as an end in itself, where I look upon this physical body itself as myself, as an end. Then I start to pamper. The body requires comfort, so I try to give as much comfort as possible. The body wants it to be always smelling good with all these scents and perfumes. So all these things are pampering. Health maintenance is different. So that is the physical layer, Kayikam. Now the second one is Vachikam, the verbal conditioning. This is also extremely important. Speech discipline is given an importance by Bhagavan Krishna even in the 17th chapter of Gita. And there he talks about 4 parameters for a good speech. So for the 4 parameters that we have to take into consideration are: number 1, whatever we speak should be anudvega karam. Anudvega karam means harmless. It should not hurt anyone. When I say ahimsa, as in not doing any hurt, not hurting others, ahimsa has to be followed in all 3 layers: Kayikam, Vachikam and Manasam. So I should not physically hurt, I should not be mentally hurting through words also. I should not be mentally hurting, which is through Manasam, and I should not be hurting somebody through words also, Vachikam also. So ahimsa at vak level is the first stage. So anudvega karam means harmless speech. So all forms of abuse, criticism, blaming others, arguments, all these denigrations are all considered to be himsa. And what is the best way to understand? The same thing as whatever we said about samanya dharma. An easy way to understand what is unacceptable is first understand what hurts me when others speak about me or speak to me. The same thing I should avoid when speaking to others or speaking about others. That is anudvega karam. That is the number one. Second one is satyam. Satyam is truthfulness. What is satyam? Bhagavan again, he gives this satyam as one of the values to imbibe. And in Bhagavad Gita, when we discuss satyam, we will discuss this in a lot more detail. Satyam means basically not lying to others. And satyam is an important qualification to reach Brahman. Because Brahman is what? Brahman is considered to be Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma. Satyam is there, of course, it means Satyam is one which is ever present. But only by speaking the truth we can reach that absolute Satyam also. Every Asatyam takes me away from Ishvara. There is a prayer, right? Asato ma satgamaya. Please take me away from Asat. O Ishvara, please take me away from Asat. So every lie that we say, it takes me away from Ishvara. So I should sensitize my mind to such an extent that every lie that I utter, it should disturb me. And that disturbance should become deeper and deeper and long lasting, so that I lie. The pain that is caused by the lie should become so deep that it is creating me more problems than whatever benefit I get out of lying. So the pain that I get internally by lying should be much more than the benefit that I might get by lying. And that is what Raja Harishchandra did, right? Harishchandra could not lie. And whatever comfort he could have got by lying was much less than the problem that he would get by just lying. So he refused to lie. And that way, when I sensitize my mind to that, I would effortlessly drop lying. And lying should not be for, some people say, I just lied for fun. Even that is not to be practiced. Lying as such should not be done at all. Certain unavoidable lies, if a person performs, there are some unavoidable lies, and if unavoidable lies do happen, then that can be reduced to a certain extent by doing prayashchittam. What is prayashchittam there? Voluntarily going through pain. And what is a unavoidable lie? Somebody comes, say somebody is being, I don't know, some people are coming to hit somebody else, and this person hides somewhere, and the persons who are following are coming and asking with a weapon in their hands, are asking us where the other person is. we may have to lie. At that time I cannot say I will not lie and therefore show where the person is. So those are kind of unavoidable lies. Unavoidable lies where unavoidable in the sense something which is not done out of selfish motive. If I do it out of selfish motive, then it is avoidable lie. Okay. So that is the second one. So first one is anudvega karam, second one is satyam, the third one is priyam. Priyam means agreeable. That is the third parameter of a vak tapas. Agreeable means pleasant. Priyam means pleasant. Whatever, my speech should be pleasant in terms of decibels. It should be soft, it should be slow, it should be polite, it should be gentle, and it should have Mangala Shabdam. Mangala Shabdam should be used. We should avoid using all this Amangala Shabdam. Some people use this word ayyo, that all those Amangala words they use regularly out of habit. That should be avoided. Some people use Mangala Shabdam regularly. They say Sai Ram, Hari, Ram, Ram, Narayana, Om Namah Shivaya, Shivaya Namah. All those things. Those are things that have to be followed more and more. So that is the third parameter. And the fourth one is hitam. Hitam means helpful. Whatever is good to the listener also, I should be talking only about that. If what I say is not going to help the other person, I should not be talking at all. Otherwise, if I just talk about some people they come to talk and they talk only about themselves. What they did, how they did, where they went, how they mentioned how they had their holiday, how they spent their life, how their family is doing, how this about their kids, their grandchildren, everything. The moment the other person starts on something, they will say I am busy. So until that time, these persons would be it's nothing but himsa that they have done on the other person when they have to talk on only themselves. The general fact is nobody wants to listen to us, and that is true for everybody. Nobody wants to listen to us. Everybody wants to only talk, wants others to listen. So unless it helps the other person, there is no point in talking. Otherwise we are only creating, we are basically, when the person leaves after talking, this person will think, that person came and only talked about that person, why should I even listen? So that is actually doing some himsa to the other person. So we should try to avoid. So these are the 4 vak tapas. What is this? Anudvega karam, satyam, priyam and hitam. So this is at the vachikam level. So we saw kayikam, vachikam, now manasam. Manasam is mental. Manasamsa is the mental conditioning program. So all forms of meditation come under this mental conditioning program. Although meditation is not the only method for mental conditioning. So primarily this upasana means meditation only actually. Upasana means mental conditioning, meditation. But if I have to handle my mind, I cannot handle my mind without handling my body or my speech. Without my body conditioning and without my speech conditioning, I will not be able to handle my mind. And therefore, these are necessary conditions that I have to do before I come to my mind. The mind is a subtle instrument. It is not that easy to control the mind. So hence we will have to start with the gross physical layer, and then the little bit subtler layer of verbal discipline. We'll have to bring in verbal discipline, and then finally come to the mind. Just like even in Patanjali's Ashtanga Yoga also, it is in the same manner also. Mental condition comes last. First is Yama and Niyama. all those physical conditioning and body conditioning is yama niyama are the outward conditioning. Then you have asana pranayama. Asana is sitting posture, pranayama, all those things before you can come there. So we will talk about this mental conditioning, how to do mental conditioning, what are the different forms of meditation, what is meditation, how do we need to go about it, all these things in the next class. I will just take up the questions here. As per karma theory, how does lower forms of birth, animals, etc., nullify those karmas accumulated to attain moksha? So, every jiva exhausts moksha, exhausts karma in their lives. Every jiva, which means every plant, animal or human, exhaust karma in their life. That exhausting of the karma, what the karma that they exhaust is called as prarabdha karma. We will discuss this in later when we discuss karma theory also. I'll just give a quick one now. The animals and plants do not accumulate any new karma. They only exhaust karmas. Whereas human beings, we accumulate karmas. Okay, so this point is clear. Now the second thing that you have to note is, just because I am born as a human in this life does not mean that I am going to be born as a human in the next life also. The next life, in all probability, could be animal or insect or a plant. If I go with just the, as I said, the probability case. So then I would be exhausting again my karma. I will not be accumulating karma. I would have accumulated a lot of karma in this birth. Every action of mine is going to incur papa or punya, so there I would be exhausting a lot of karma now. So to attain moksha is only through jnana, through removing my ignorance, and that can be done only in human birth. So when these lower forms of birth, when they take the form of humans, that is the only option when every jiva has to attain moksha. So that's why we talk about how important is this human life. In the first two classes itself we discussed this human life is so rare, and this is our opportunity to get out of this cycle. And if we miss this opportunity, we do not know when we will get the opportunity next. I hope that answers that. Please explain why the desire for Chitta Shuddhi is different from other desires. We should do Karma Yoga and not worry about the result from it also. Just like we should give up other desires, we should also not have the desire for Chitta Shuddhi and Moksha. It should happen as an outcome of purity achieved in all aspects. Desire is, first of all, desire by itself is not wrong. Shastras do not say desire is wrong. Kamya desires are wrong, to be avoided. Kamya means what? Selfish desires. Selfish desires should be avoided. If I have a pure mind, or if I am actually looking for moksha, it is not considered to be a selfish desire. If I am actually exuding confidence, if I am actually exuding happiness, if I am actually a nice person, would not people around me be happy? Of course they will be. So the question is, when I am saying I want to be a nice person, and remember there is a lot of difference between I want to be a nice person and I want to be known as a nice person, or I want to be called a nice person. Most of us, we are looking to be called as a nice person, or we want others to know that we are a nice person. We are not looking for becoming a nice person. But if I am actually becoming a nice person, it is not considered a selfish desire. Moksha is not a selfish desire. Moksha is a desire where it is actually, if I go very philosophically, we are all in the state of moksha, except that we don't even know that we are in the state of moksha. That is actually the Advaita philosophy. I don't even want to go there now. But even if we consider moksha is something that I have to achieve, it is not a selfish motive. It is a selfless motive, because by exuding happiness, by exuding goodwill around me, I will make lot more people happy. So it is not considered to be a kamya karma. Even desires, there are three categories, right? Tamasic desires, rajasic desires, and sattvic desires. Sattvic desires are important. That I should speak the truth, that I should be helpful, that I should not have pride, that I should not be jealous, that I should not hate anyone, is a good desire to have. Everybody should have sattvic desires. Once a person attains moksha, he gets to the state of desirelessness. When we all here talk about having less kamya desires, it is about desires to satisfy my sensual pleasures. I want to eat good food, I want to watch a nice movie, I want to stay in an air-conditioned room. All these things are about, things for enjoying through my sense organs. Those are the kamya desires, kamya karmas that we are talking about, the selfish desires that we talk about. Chitta Shuddhi and moksha are not considered to be those desires. In fact, having sattvic desires is a must for a spiritual person. I hope I answered that. I practice Nichiren Buddhism, where I chant for world peace and happiness everyday desires. Will that lead me to Chitta Shuddhi? If anything you do for the sake of general humanity without expecting anything in return, it will give us some Chitta Shuddhi. But having said that, as I said, the Panchamaha Yajnas are important. It is not just enough to chant. We will have to do Bhuta, Deva, Manushya, Pitra Yajnas also. When we lie to protect, is it not Karma Yoga? When we lie to protect who? Protect ourselves? If it is protecting ourselves, it is not. As in protecting ourselves, I made a mistake, I lie to protect myself, it is not considered to be Karma Yoga. When I do it to generally help someone, this based on my own example, it is not Karma Yoga. It is not considered. Karma Yoga is a deliberate action that I do. These are you are there in that position and therefore you do. Let us not try to bring these together. Does it need prayashchitam? Every action results in some things which will have to do prayashchitam. There are, as I told you, unknowingly we might have committed a lot of papas. Like for example, when we actually step on some insects, when we actually sweep our floor, we would have killed insects. We would have killed ants. All those things require prayashchitam. So even if I lie to protect somebody, it requires some bit of prayashchitam, but it would be less. And those things, as I said, if we do this sweeping the floor, killing unwanted insects and all those things are getting neutralized by doing Panchamaha. Yes, Ashwatthama died to Dronacharya when we said, although he said Kunjaraha in a mild tone, technically he did not lie, but the motive was wrong, and therefore that is considered to be Papa. So he had to go through some bit of pain or suffering that he may have to take because of that. Ultimately, what matters is the motive. Action matters, but more importantly, the motive. If the motive is selfish in nature, it is generally speaking, if we lie to, cover up ourselves up, it is called definitely motive is bad, it is selfish, and therefore it is Papa. And there you cannot even claim that it is a necessary lie. So we cannot even claim that. But even otherwise, even if we have done it not on purpose, we will have to do some prayashittam for that. But those prayashittam is all very minor prayashittam that we may have to do. Any other questions or comments? Okay. If not, we'll meet again in next class. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Swasti Prajabhyah Paripalayantam Nyayena Margena Mahim Mahishaha Gobhramanebhyo Subhamattu Nityam Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu. Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha.